Well, you've joined me down here at St John's Lake on the linear complex this morning. Got down here bright and early, wasn't sure exactly what lake I wanted to fish. I really fancied St John's. We're early in spring. It's a little bit cold for it. Not a lot's been happening in recent weeks. There's been a couple of fish out, but not a lot. But I really fancy it, so I've had a wander around first thing. It was quite busy, but it's Sunday morning and quite a few people are packing up. So some guys were off early over on the social bank, and I've had a good walk round. And fortunately I've seen a fish show out in front of one of the social bank swims. It's quite long range out, so I've barrowed round quite sort of eager after seeing a fish. I always think if you can see a fish and get on them, there's always a chance of getting a bite. So I'm in the swim now. I've chucked out a couple of zigs to start with. I've got both of them bang on where the fish is showed and a single hook bait, and I fancy a bit of bait fishing. I think with it being early on in the year, and I kind of get the feeling it's warming up a bit and they might just have a munch, so I'm going to drop a bit of bait in, put a couple of rods and just really see what happens really. If they carry on showing, then not near the bait, then I'll keep chucking zigs around and we'll just play it by ear really. But I've got Steve the cameraman down with me today as well. In between filming, he's going to chuck his rods out. He's getting back into carp fishing, so hopefully I'll be giving him a hand, and it'd be nice to think that he'll be able to catch a few as well. But for the meantime, I'm going to get some bait out and see if we can get our first bite. It's been a bit of a difficult day today. Sun's been up, it's got really warm in the day, not a lot of wind on the water, and I've seen a few fish showing, and they're well past where I've put the bait in, and I've had 2 zigs on them basically all day. I've recast them, I've tried a couple of different depths, I've tried black, I've tried yellow, and haven't seemed to be able to muster up a bite just of yet. But you know, there's still plenty of time to go. I'm just going to sort of be patient and keep working at it and keep watching the water and react to what sort of happens in front of me really. Probably going to put a bit more bait in now just for the night time, and definitely get 2 rods on the deck for the night, and I've got a 3rd rod to play around with, a few zigs, maybe just cast some solid bags. It all depends on what I see over the next hour or so, I guess, as the sun sets. But I'm going to wind the zig in, get a couple on the deck for now and go from there. Well, darkness has descended upon us and the action is started. Just as it was getting dark, Steve had a take on a solid bag, and unfortunately that one fell off right at the end of the net. It's really frustrating, but I've chucked one out on a bag and left 2 on the bait. Oh, and I've got a take. I will be back with you in a second. Well, a little bit of mayhem. Waited all day for a bite, not had anything all day. Literally tearing what little hair I have left, tearing it out, and just into darkness, my bait rod's ripped off. Just holding it up for the camera, and I've had a take on the bag rod. So, like the bus is, it's the second take for me, and Steve's had a take, all within sort of like a 20-minute period. So hopefully it's signs of things to come. This one doesn't feel too big. It's ready for netting. But it's a couple of bites and hopefully get a few more and we'll get a bigger one. Well, there she is, the second fish in a matter of minutes. Only a small one, probably one of the new stockies that's just sort of been put in 2014. Probably just over double figures, but real pretty mirror. You know, it really looks like the future's bright for this place. If you've got like fish like this coming through, it's going to be looking good in the future when they're all over £20 and reaching £30. Cameraman Steve had to quickly put the other fish back whilst the rod ripped off, so I'm going to drop this one back and let's get the rods back out and see if we can get another bite. Well, fish number 3, and they're getting a little bit bigger. Absolutely mint, pristine common. It gave up a hell of a scrap. I heard a couple of fish show just after I had the last couple, and I whacked the bag straight back out there to the area. I could just see the rings in the moonlight, and I've managed to get the solid bag back out to the area that they were showing, and it wasn't out there long, probably about 10 minutes, and it's ripped off again, so it's looking good. Now that's Carpy. 6 o'clock in the morning, heavy frost, bloke sat on his chair with a sleeping bag cover over him watching the water. Proper Carpy. Well, it's been an eventful night. It kicked off pretty early and I had 3 fish in quick succession. Then things slowed down a bit, but I had 2 takes in the night, and unfortunately the first one just dropped to the deck and I picked it up and there was nothing on there. And the second one, I got all the way into the edge. It kited across one of the other lines, and the hook just popped out just before the net, so that was a bit unfortunate. But then the rest of the night was pretty quiet, and just as the sun's come up bright and early, I've had an absolute melter on the left hander, just on a solid bag, cast out to where the fish were showing in the evening, and I've got one on just nearly ready for the net, and it's absolutely freezing. As you can see from looking around, there's been a heavy frost over the night, and it's nice to have a fish on. See if we can get it in the net. Look at the net. Bit green cord. Absolutely nailed that one won't come off. Well, a nice frosty early morning wake up call. Only a small one, but all we can do is just keep getting bites and hope that a bigger one comes along next time. Well, it's absolutely freezing. We've just slipped that one back. 2 minutes later, look at that. Frozen solid. Winter carp fishing. Well, the sun's coming out at last and it's warming up a little bit, and just had a drop back again on the long range rod. I haven't seen many show this morning, I've only seen 2, but just casting those bags to where the fish were showing yesterday keeps producing the bites. I mean, I had a take about half an hour ago as well, and unfortunately that one fell off sort of within 5 seconds of the fight. Felt like a small one, and I think quite often you find with the small stockies that get put in a lake, they've often got soft mouths, and they quite often fall off fairly early on in the fight. But got another fish on here. Doesn't feel overly that big, but hopefully we'll get this one in the net. Another one in the back of the net. Well, I've been catching most of my fish on solid bags this session, and I suppose now would be the perfect time to delve deeper into my PVA bag bucket. Now, when I'm PVA bag fishing, I have everything organised, so I've got one bucket that has everything in it that I am ever going to need for my PVA bag fishing. So let's have a little look closer inside. First of all, I have two trays inside. The first one, I have all my solid bags tied up. I've got through quite a lot this session, and as of yet I haven't actually had to tie any up, because before I came I tied up a load, or in fact these were actually tied a fair while ago, the last time I was solid bag fishing. As you can see, I've got a lot of maize flour in there. Now that basically stops them, takes all the moisture out. So if it's slightly raining and I'm dipping my hand in to sort of pick up a PVA bag, this type of PVA is very temperamental, so any water or any rain that gets in there will just destroy your PVA bags. So the maize flour in there just takes away any moisture and it absorbs everything to stop any water from getting in and destroying the bags. So as you can see, I've got some of my bags tied up. I've got basically two different setups really. One's on an Avid quick clip, which basically means I can just loop to loop the end of my, I have a loop on the end of my shock leader, and there's a small loop on the end of here, and I just basically attach it loop to loop style, which is really simple. And the other ones that I have are basically on a Leadcore leader, so probably about sort of 1/2 meter, and again there's a loop on the end of the Leadcore, so I can just quickly change the solid bag once I've had a fish, or once I want to recast, wind it in, quickly take the old solid bag off and put this one on and get it back out there. As we proved last night, bites can come like pretty quickly, so when the feeding spell is happening, you want to get those bags out there in super quick time. So just looking closer at the PVA bags, I have got all of my hook baits are plastic corn. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, because I can balance it out on a short little rig so that it's just really slow sinking. I think your hook bait for a solid bag always wants to be nice and balanced. You've got a lot of small pellets in there, and once the PVA breaks down, you've got a nice little patch of pellets with a small wafting hook bait in the middle. So when a carp comes down to feed on the solid bag, I think it's sort of like only 1 or 2 mouthfuls, and I believe that they don't necessarily go specifically for your hook bait. They're coming in and just hoovering up everything in a couple of mouthfuls. So you want your hook bait nice and balanced, so that as they come in and suck up the pellets, your hook bait's balanced and shoots up into their mouth, and they're nailed. So that's that. The other reason I use a plastic bait, because I tie my bags well in advance. Sometimes they can be sat in there for 2 or 3 months before I actually get to use them. Now if I was to put a pop-up inside a PVA bag and leave it for 2 months, the pellets or something in there seems to make the pellet or the pop-up shrink right down, and it gains buoyancy. And so basically if you leave it for too long, potentially you could cast it out and your pop-up will pop right up off the lead, which isn't what you want when you're PVA bag fishing. So looking down at the next tray, I have got everything I need to tie up my PVA bags. So I've got the solid bags that I use for 90% of my PVA bag fishing is the plain mini bags from ESP. They're absolutely perfect for long range distance fishing, for fishing over the bait, and they deliver just the perfect amount of pellets, the perfect package onto the spot, which is, as I said before, just enough for a mouthful of bait for the carp. PVA tape to sort of finish the bag off. I always use PVA tape as opposed to PVA string, because it grips better and finishes off the bag perfectly. As we can see, I have got all my rigs that are untied, ones that I've wound in, ones that I've had fish on, and before I sort of tie up another bag, all I'll do is take one out. I'll check the hook point to start with just by running it over my thumb, and that one's what I call sticky sharp. If it slides across the top of your thumb, then it's not sharp, and I'll cut the rig off and put a fresh one on. And if it is sharp, it just sticks just like that, so it's not sliding across the foam. So that's nice and sharp, ready to go. Also, the advantage is sometimes I trim a little bit of the edge of the plastic sweet corn off, and basically the reason I do this is because at the time it's probably too buoyant, so it will sit up when I test it. So I just trim it off so that the hook bait just comes down and sinks nice and slowly. And for most of the time, the hook eye just sits on the deck, and the bit of corn is just popped up just above the deck, which means it's just out and nice and visual just above the pile of pellets. For the hook link, I always use a soft Sink Link hook link from ESP. You always want to use a short hook link when PVA bag fishing. 3 to 4 inches is about perfect. I see some people using really long hook links inside a bag, and you don't really want that. Because everything's nice and compact, you want, when the fish comes down and they suck the hook bait up, once it goes into their mouth, you want that weight of the lead to come into effect straight away. Always use an inline lead for my PVA bag fishing. I actually use a 3.5 ounce Avid lead. They sit nice and flat on the bottom and grip the bottom nicely. 3.5 ounces, I always use that weight of lead. I've tried lighter leads, heavier leads, and I find that to be the optimum size lead for sort of long range distance fishing. Inside the mini PVA bags, they absolutely fly out there. So that's basically the setup. As you can see, just inside I've got my scissors, PVA tape and a needle, and these are all basically, once I wind in, I dry the lead off, just rub it in a towel, or a lot of the time I actually use my trousers to dry them off. I pop them in the bucket and they're all ready to tie up some more solid bags as soon as I get a spare 10 minutes. Just looking further into the bucket, in the bottom I have all my pellets. So when I'm tying up my PVA bags, all my pellet is in here. And for my main part of my bag mix, I use a mini pellet combo. And I've added some extra Salmon Fry crumb, just basically so I can make my bags nice and compact. That Salmon Fry crumb is really micro, like a micro pellet almost, and it just fills all the voids in the air inside the bag and makes them more compact. And the more compact you can get your solid bags, the further they're going to cast. Well, I've literally just finished delving into my bucket of solid bags, talking through that, and funny enough my solid bags just ripped off. Perfect timing. Well, with most of the bites coming on the solid bags, I think the reason is working is there's a lot of silkweed out there. It's only thin, but it's kind of, most of it seems to be dead, and there doesn't really seem to be any clear areas out there other than the bait that I've put other than the spot I've put bait on. I'm catching them all on the solid bags way past the bait, and I just think that with the light layer of silkweed on there, just that little package of bait is just always perfectly presented, and the fish seem to have no problems in finding that. And all of my rigs are coming back and my lines caped in this silkweed, but the fish are certainly having no problems whatsoever finding the hook bait. Beauty. Well, we've got a better one. Not huge by the lake standards, but looks like it could be a 20. Let's have a closer look. Absolutely nailed on the solid bag. I think it will. Who's going to call it? Well, I was a little bit sceptical as to whether I was going to bump into a better fish on these solid bags. It seemed like they seemed to be accounting for quite a few small fish, but this is fish number 7 now, and let me tell you, I'm absolutely over the moon with it. At £25 is a right result. Obviously the fish in this lake go a hell of a lot bigger than this, but it's a very difficult sort of session at the moment. Done really well to catch 7 fish, to be honest, and this is just the icing on the cake. We've still got a bit more time left, so let's see if we can catch something a little bit better again, but overall I'm well happy with this one. Another St John's beauty. Well, we're coming to the end of the session now, and I've got to be honest, I'm really pleased with the action that I've had. The lake hasn't really been fishing very well so far this year. There hasn't been that many fish out, and I've got to admit, when I'd penciled in to come down and do some filming, I thought this was going to be prime time, but with how slow it's been fishing, I was kind of worried that we weren't going to catch a lot, and so to have caught as many as that I have done, it's been a right result really, and I've had a couple of absolutely gorgeous fish, so I am personally absolutely over the moon. I think the key parts of the session really was sort of watching the water and seeing the fish, and that kind of goes for any session really, I guess, but I'd sort of come with the intention of fishing zigs and fishing over bait, because that's what's worked for me on the past on here, and I've only had one fish off of the bait. It wasn't the one really. In hindsight, I think they probably could have got on the feed, but I probably put the bait in the wrong place. The area that I'd baited wasn't where I was seeing the fish. In hindsight, I should have waited a bit longer and probably seen some fish before I put the bait out, but nevertheless I still managed to bag quite a few fish on solid bags. As I've said throughout the session, the fish have been showing well past where I've baited, and just casting solid bags into the area that they've been showing has produced me a large number of bites. So just goes to show really, busy day ticket water, just keep your eyes out, you know, and react to what's happening in front of you. I thought I was going to catch on zigs on the first day. I really thought that was the one, but that didn't happen, and bags weren't really in my plan at the time, but I just had to try it. You know, nothing was working, and a solid bag out in the area, and I've had a bite, and I've ended up fishing all three on solid bags at range. You know, once you get something that's working, once you can spot a few fish and get a rig in the area and get something working, you need to make the most of it really and get all three rods out there. Anyway, as I said, I'm really happy with the session. I've really enjoyed it, and looking forward to doing some more diary pieces in the not too distant future. Well, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I've had an absolute one toner off the bait. Thought, here we go, they're on it, and fortunately or unfortunately this thing pops up. Not sure if you can quite see it there, but I knew after about 10 minutes of not being able to gain any line that it was more than likely going to be one of the resident catfish in the lake. Not the biggest in the lake, but I've weighed it, 39 pound, gave up a hell of a scrap. Mixed emotions really. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't really want to be getting out of bed, getting sort of wet and slimy for one of these, but at the same time, there's a fish, he's a big one. Gave me a bit of a battle, all good fun. Let's get her back and see if we can catch one of the intended species. Nice big carp. A carp around this similar sort of size would be very nice, but we'll see.